Erik Andrade.
Yeah.
Thank you, Erik. And next up, if you're here, Zumalek Rivera.
Thank you for your time. I'm coming from New Bedford, Massachusetts, and I wanted to bring up an issue in regards to the displacement that happens in other communities. Oftentimes what happens is that that's dominoes effects into other communities. So our community is seeing an influx of people moving from other communities that are facing a housing crisis. In our community, we have high unemployment and high poverty. We're also a community where there's a large population of African immigrants from Cape Verde who came over in the early 1900s, generated wealth for that community, but were redlined out of access to buying homes in many of the places. And African American and indigenous communities. Displacement and gentrification is nothing new for our community. The Pokanoket and Wampanoag people were displaced by the Plymouth colony. An African American community and the Cape Verdean community was displaced to build Route 18 through our community. 1,000 homes were displaced in the 70s, leading to an uprising that happened in the city. During that uprising, the response that the state had was to address the issues, and the issues were on housing crisis that had already existed before that displacement of all those homes to build a highway to nowhere, a highway that goes from exit 15 to the beach. That displaced a community that was thriving and self-sufficient. That community was redlined into that area next to downtown because of they worked on the boatyards, and that wasn't attractive property because of the whaling industry and the fishing industry. So that community of color was redlined into that community. That community was divested from, and folks now in that divestment, now there's a district that was created in 2013, a cultural district that was created that abuts those communities. So in abutting that, there's been a lot of investment into downtown, and it has been advertised by the city. The mayor said he wanted to call it gentrification if you want, but I want to make New Bedford look like Brookline. So that aspect of his intentionality is actually a reality. The rent has increased so much that many people have been forced out of their homes already. And we're dealing with a reality where a former Boston resident, Malcolm X, once said that when you live in a poor neighborhood, you're able to go to a poor school, and with that poor school, you're able to get a poor education, which enables you to have a poor paying job, which again enables you to live in a poor community. My question is, New Bedford being a place where now we're facing a housing crisis that has already been in existence since as far back as the 70s, an increasing housing crisis from this districting, the college building in, now there's a line that's coming through, and also people from Brockton, Fall River, Boston are moving, and New York and other points are moving into the community, so now there's less of a housing stock. So my question is, where do poor people go when you can't afford the ghetto? The reality is that it's not a promising look, and this domino effect that's happening across the city is going to greatly impact everywhere. And right now, the disparities that exist, we have economic apartheid, and the Commonwealth does not have commonwealth. So our education is based on the wealth of the community. So the poor education that we have based on the economic opportunity that exists in our community creates a situation where people are stuck in a vicious cycle. And that's what Malcolm X alluded to. But that cycle is even worse now, because now we can't even afford to live in the places that we've been marginalized to beforehand. Those areas are now areas that are attractive to colleges. And one issue I would like to make is that we live in Massachusetts, where there's a lot of quote unquote nonprofit universities that have endowments in the billions. And they actually add a tax burden to infrastructure through the water, through the public works. And because of these institutions are quote unquote a nonprofit, they're not sharing the burden. So this is an area we could look at in terms of part of the reason we have a housing crisis is because of this reality of the universities that exist in our community, which is a great thing. But however, imagine we tax these organizations that are actually making a significant profit, then maybe some of this burden would be changed. And I'm here in support of the rent control bill and also the transactional tax fee.
Thank you, Erik. Any questions from the committee? Thank you for your testimony and for your patience here today.
Thank you.